Hello, my name's Alan Foom, and today I'm going to talk about forecasting oil demand to 2040. I did a poll, hence to ask the audience. So we'll look at the results of this poll, results of public forecasts, but some work that I've done myself to see what may be happening. And the two charts you see here these are all the publicly available forecasts together with real demand in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and how much we're going to be producing over the next 20 years, which under all reasonable forecasts will be at least as much as we have produced over the last 20. Oil is not dead yet, whatever you may desire. So there are many different forecasts. They are made by different agencies, so government agencies or intergovernmental agencies such as the EIA and IEA, the Energy Information Administration of the United States, and International Energy Agency based in Paris. By energy companies, BP, Shell, ExxonMobil, Equinor, etc. They all produce forecasts. Some academics do it. So trying to aggregate it all together to see what's going on and see what could be there. Now, the key point here is that the range is extremely wide. The lowest case forecasts call for demand of 50 million barrels of oil per day in 2040. That's half of what we're producing now. The high case forecasts are 430 million barrels of oil per day in terms of demand. That's 30% more than what we produced in consumed in 2019. And obviously, these different demand scenarios have profound implications for society, for economics, for the different countries, both producers and consumers, etc. So, what do people think? So, 2021, I did my first poll on LinkedIn, and the question asked was, what is your forecast for the mid-case oil demand in 2040? And for reference, in 2019, the world consumed 100 million barrels of oil per day. And four answer options, 50, 75, 100, and 120. And quite a lot of people looked at the poll, but only 387 replied, which is actually not too bad for a LinkedIn poll. And these are results. So 11, 22, 29, 37. So the largest portion of the people who replied had a significant increase, and only 11% had a significant decrease. Now, that's kind of at odds of what you get from the media. Now, it could be that these are people who responded, but it was an open poll. And the media tends to get, particularly in the West, particularly in Britain where I live, tends to be towards here. Reality could be different. We don't know. It's forecast scenarios. So these are the results by connection to me. So people who are third level connections, people who don't really know me, tended to have a slightly bias towards slightly towards the low side. In terms of industry, geologists tended to have a bias towards the high side. Engineers sort of split around the middle. Other oil and gas people, again, slight bias towards the high side, and non-oil and gas people actually not that different. So you could say that oil and gas people would have bias towards the high side. You can have anti-Rice Davis applies, but we have to see what's there and what's going on. So if you look at public forecasts, so basically these are all the forecasts of 2040, put an order of magnitude. So at the bottom, just over 50 million barrels is BP's net zero, which was published in 2021. They've done an updated version of it last year, which is fairly similar. Then you have the rapid transition forecasts. They're all tend to range between about 60, 65, 70, up to about 75, and they're all made by actually Europeans. So BP, IEA, Equinor, Norwegian oil and gas company, energy company, used to be known as Statoil, and DNV, which is a Danish consultancy. And then you have the mainstream forecasts, all roughly between 95 and about 105. So that's Shell Sky, which was quite a big thing when that was published, the first version of it in 2018, because it had significant decline in oil and gas consumption, but only after about 2050. BP business as usual, or evolving trends. So these effectively are evolving trends. So policies are happening now, and we just continue. And then you have forecasts for more growth. They tend to come from outside Europe. EIA, which is the American body, plus some Exxon, American oil company, plus also some Japanese forecaster, and also Shell and Equinor upside forecasts. If you look at higher oil consumption that's there, and these are 2019, 2020, the demand reduction of oil demand during the pandemic, which is only 10% when the world shut down effectively, and 2021, slight build up as the world reopened. So these are charts showing the paths of the different graphs. Again, BPs with the BP symbol, shells with the shell symbol, so waves, rivalry, and sky. Again, I'd recommend going to the Shell website and look at those scenarios. They describe them quite some detail. Two from IEA, so continuing trends and rapid transition, fairly similar to BP's rapid transition. And EIA in America, a bit of an outlier, just continued growth. Again, depends on the countries that people come from and how they think and how they feel. So what about next, how much will we use in the next 20 years? So this is the amount of oil used on an annual basis between 2000 and 2019. If you look at what you're going to get between 2020 and 2040, so integrating the areas under the graphs, they're all going to be significantly higher than what we have used in the past. So oil is not dead. Oil will continue to be used for at least the next 20 years, and numbers not too dissimilar to what we're using now. What happens after that is a bit more speculative, because technologies can evolve, society can evolve, policies can evolve. If you're looking at BP's forecast, so a person made a comment on one of my posts saying, well, can you compare the BP graphs? So Clayton, here it is. So what has happened here is generally BP publish an annual energy outlook, published in March. So this includes some of their forecasts from 2023. They've tended to decline a little bit every year. So this is their business as usual or new momentum graph. So that's effectively current trends. This is a rapid transition graph, and this is net zero graph. But if you're looking at forecasts that are there, if you strip out the effect of the pandemic, which has made things a little bit harder to quantify, so the big white line is history from their statistical review of world energy, it doesn't look like we're on the rapid transition path. Now, could be wrong. Again, things would happen over the next few years, see what happens there. But they do a lot of useful work in terms of forecasts and ideas. So what is oil used for? So this is again chart from BP, oil usage by sector from 2016, and there are other charts that are similar, and they actually have fairly similar numbers. So roughly 30 to 35% is used for light vehicles. That's mainly gasoline and electricity generation. So that's electricity generators, which is mostly the Middle East, remote islands, etc. So not much oil is used for electricity generation. So this is the stuff that could be substituted within the next decade or so. Electric cars, less oil use in electricity generation, etc. So that's 30, maybe 35% of oil demand. The remainder either is very difficult to substitute, so that's heavy freight, aviation, shipping, and use in buildings, or cannot be. For example, petrochemicals, industrial processes, etc. So that side will probably grow. My gut feeling is that this will shrink, this part of the pie will shrink, this part of the pie may stay the same, may shrink, might even grow. This side of the pie will grow. So different oil product demands may well take place. So gasoline may need to be cracked down into naphtha and other lighter petrochemicals. So who consumes the most oil? Again, statistics from BP. So slightly over 50% of the world's oil consumption is accounted for by 7 countries. So USA, just under 20%, China, 14%, India, 5.5%, Japan, just under 4%, Saudi Arabia, just under 4%, Russia, 3.5%, and Korea, just under 3%. So those are the really most important countries. The EU, which is part of this pile, so I've broken it down to individual countries, is about 11% of oil demand, and UK is 1.6%. So Europe is less important for oil demand and becoming much less so. If you're looking at what's been happening in the key countries between 2000 and 2019, USA steady, China, look at the rapid growth, India, look at the rapid growth, Japan, decline, Saudi Arabia, growth and then steady, Russia, kind of slow growth, Korea, low growth, Brazil, slow growth, Germany, decline. So you get a picture. Decline in Europe and Japan, steady in the USA and some other big countries, rapid rise in Asia. If you look at oil consumption per capita, so that's how much each individual person uses, USA has declined, China has grown, India has grown, Japan has declined, Saudi Arabia has grown, but then a little bit of a local decline. Russia, slight growth. Korea, kind of steady. Canada, a little bit of decline. Germany, steady decline. So what you can see is that the Asian countries, they're growing, but their per capita consumption is still significantly less than the OECD. So I've done some of my own modeling, and I'll put a video out on this in the future. So basically, it's a way of looking at per capita consumption and population forecasts. So try to split those two together. And if you're looking at the mid case, which for me is about 100 million barrels of oil per day, low case, I can get it down to about 89, 88-ish, but even then I'm struggling. High case can go up to about 125, 130, but I also will struggle with that because I'm not sure if there's going to be enough oil available to do that. So again, consumption mid-case forecast, growth in China, decline in the US, growth in India, decline in Japan, basically trends that are pretty much baked in and going to continue unless there's a rapid change in technology and a rapid change in society. If you're looking at per capita consumption, decline in the US, increase in China, increase in India, but there's still a lot less than the OECD countries. Decline in Saudi Arabia, now that could change quite a bit if the Saudis go seriously for gas and seriously for renewables, particularly solar and electricity generation. Decline in Korea, decline in Canada, and then again, etc. as ongoing. Significant declines in the UK and France, significant declines in Europe. That's kind of baked in the cake with European policies. But wildcard is Africa. Now, Africa's per capita consumption of oil and gas hasn't changed in 30 odd years. They haven't had the takeoff that China's had. You can look at how China's taking off. This is total consumption, not per capita. You can look at India. So in 1990, the continent of Africa consumed less oil than India. India is now beginning to overtake Africa and has significantly overtaken Africa. Middle East has had significant growth, but what if Africa takes off? A lot more oil may be consumed there. So sum up, predictions are hard, especially about the future. It's quite attributed to very many people, Niels Bohr, Yogi Berra, and others. But we have to try to make predictions. We have to look at scenarios to see how societies, how economies develop. And there's a wide range of demand forecasts. Well, good, because the future is uncertain. We need a wide range. But some of these forecasts are a little colored by ideology on both sides. So Exxon you can see with a very large forecast, BP with a relatively small forecast. Now you can argue, do the forecasts drive these companies' strategies, or do these strategies drive these people's forecasts? Different people have different forecasts, and that's a good thing because the future is not certain. Thank you very much. Please like, please subscribe. I'll see you on the next.